February the 19th, we will begin the City Council meeting. We're going to start with a closed session at 5, followed by a regular session at 6. Can I please do a roll call? Are we using the machines today?
No, sir, not for roll call.
Okay, so we will do a verbal roll call.
We're going to start with Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Mr. Gorman.
Present.
Thank you. We have 4 present. Mr. Endicott is attending LAFCO and will join us as soon as he's done. But we do have a quorum to start.
Okay, we've moved on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda beyond what I believe? That is that we are going to move item number 6, which is City Response to Indian Wells Valley Water District letter dated February the 3rd, 2025, to just before item number 3.
That's the only ones on the list.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
can I get a second?
Second.
Now we should be able to vote, please.
And vote.
Waiting on you, Skip.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Just wasn't sure if you were reading or... And then maybe Kevin has not been taught how to go with an absent. So we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Mr. Gorman.
Abstain.
Abstain. That is okay. You just caught me off guard. So we have 3 approvals and 1 abstention. Motion still carries.
Okay, the agenda is approved. We're going to move on to the closed session. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, Mojave Pistachios LLC versus Indian Wells Valley Water District, Orange County Superior Court case. We will be right back as soon as we've had our closed session. We will adjourn. Thank you. Zoom into regular session out of closed session. Martin, do you want to report out?
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and council members, council will consider 1 item in closed session, which is the litigation. No reportable action was taken by the council in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, resuming regular session, we will begin with Pledge of Allegiance and then move on to invocation. Travis, would you lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Solomon Rajaratnam, would you lead us, please?
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Thank you for the city which we cherish and live. Lord, I pray for our country. Lord, give us your wisdom and your direction so that this country goes in the right direction, Lord. I pray for our troops who are in harm's way. Protect them from all evil. I pray for our police department, which strives to keep this city safe for all of us. Lord, bless them and bless whatever they do for this community and bless their families. Lord, thank you for the wonderful works which they do in our community, Lord. Lord, thank you for their service to this community. Lord, be with us, and thanks for giving us this opportunity to be on the city council. Lord, give us your wisdom so that we take the right decisions that are beneficial to this community. Bless each one of us here today. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we are on to presentations. We're going to begin with some life-saving awards. So, Sergeant Nathan Lloyd, I hope you are here. Officer Salarazano, Officer Benitez, and Officer Quiros. Okay, Council, could you join me, please, down at the podium?
Good-looking group of people here. Tonight I have the opportunity to talk about the good work that our people have done recently and the teamwork that goes into it, not only with our folks from the Ridgecrest Police Department, but from our partners at the Kern County Fire Department. What I'll ask you is just imagine you're at home and it's 12:30, 32 minutes after midnight, and you're asleep, you've got your earplugs in, but your house is on fire. That's what happened on the evening of October 16th, 2024. We got a call about that time into our communications center that there was a fire at a house. Dispatchers Luque and Peterson were working. One of them immediately transferred the call to Kern County Fire to get those resources going. The other one made sure our officers knew what was going on and got them on their way as well. The officers working that night was Sergeant Lloyd's team with Officer Solorzano, Officer Curaz, and Officer Benitez. They all responded using their lights and sirens, recognizing that at the very least we go to these fires and we evacuate nearby houses, block the streets for the fire department and things like that. However, when they arrived, they realized that nobody was outside. Normally when your house is on fire, you go outside. In this case, they didn't, and they had the wherewithal to think, maybe those folks are still inside, and then they thought they should check. You could see heavy smoke and fire already engulfing the house. It was pretty well involved. So with their deduction that the people were probably inside, even though they're not firemen, they have no protective equipment, they decided to go inside. After searching around for a little bit through the heavy smoke, they were able to find two people. One of the people was in their bed with earplugs in, had no idea the house was on fire. And the other occupant of the house realized something was wrong and was looking for his dog. They were able to convince, the person they woke up was very confused, but they were able to convince that person to come outside with them. Through the thick smoke, they guided both people out, as well as making sure that the missing dog was brought along as well. So, we didn't forget the dog. You would think that would be enough, but after they get the people out, they realize there's still work to do. We only have 2 engines in the city of Ridgecrest, 2 fire engines. The nearest engine had arrived, but the second had not. 2 of the officers started evacuating the nearby houses so that they wouldn't catch fire with people in them. And the other 2, the really big hose on the fire engine, they dragged about a football field length of that to the nearest hydrant for the firemen so they could focus on the fire. I heard about the incident and I thought, wow, that's pretty high speed that our people are out there doing that. And then I got an email from Captain Barrett of the Kern County Fire Department. And part of his email says, the initial rescue of the home's occupants gave the first responding fire crew the ability to engage in an immediate fire attack rather than conduct a rescue themselves. They likely prevented the spread of the fire to the nearby homes because they didn't have to engage in a rescue operation. Taking care of the fire hydrant connection gave the fire crew the much needed water to continue fighting the blaze, and in fact, it did not spread to any other structures. The quote from Captain Barrett, this type of teamwork plays a vital role in serving the community we pledge to protect and serve. Thank you very much to the hardworking and brave officers who aided in making the incident run as operationally smooth as possible. The amount of bravery, courage, and dedication to their jobs was admirable. So, once I heard from the fire guy on scene that this was legit, I made sure and let these guys know that I thought it was amazing, and we put them in for this award. So tonight we will recognize Dispatchers Peterson and Luque with the Meritorious Service Award. You guys want to say anything? They talk on the radio all the time, but they don't want to talk here for some reason. And I'd like to recognize Sergeant Lloyd, Officer Curaz, Officer Solorzano, and Officer Benitez with the Medal of Valor. Never short for words. Sergeant Lloyd.
Keep it short. I appreciate the fire guys. I wish they were here. They're probably out working hard. They did a lot of good work to save that house. For my crew, for my communications dispatchers, be aware that tell us that we need to get going. For my young officers here that didn't hesitate, when we were in the house, you could hear the fire above it in the attic, which when you're next to a fire at a campsite, that's a cool sound. When it's above you and you're in the smoke, you start thinking. They didn't hesitate, they handled it. They got the people next door out to ensure they're safe, and I'm proud to work for this department. Thank you.
All right, you want them up front for a picture? I mean, you brought your camera and everything.
We'll stand behind.
Awesome. Thank you, RPD. Thank you, all the officers, sergeants, detectives. You guys definitely exhibit the finest that Ridgecrest has to offer. We're now on to public comments of items that are not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not act on an item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Any comments on the floor? And then after comments on the floor, we can move on to comments that are on the phone.
Give me a second to just hand this to the city clerk. Okay, what you have before you is excerpted statements from a 2020 report by the California Auditor's Office, who talked to the Fresno Police Department, Los Angeles Police Department, Marin County Sheriff's Department, and Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. They looked at difficulties with their automated license plate reader systems in those municipalities and counties. And I've got a whole page of stuff, and I won't get through it in the 5 minutes, but unless Rick continues forgetting to start it. let me just highlight some of this. Page 34 and 35, which you all have this in your email inboxes, by the way. I sent this along with the full report at about 4 o'clock. Okay, a noted problem, limiting the access to employees with needs. The needs and the rights to access these data is a good step toward protecting individuals whose privacy would be violated if the data were misused. And it says that they had talked to a chiefs association on this, and they said that this training of authorized ALPR users was a critical accountability measure. However, you note throughout the report that they've noted numerous incidents where that training was insufficient or not even actually done at all. They just cut the police department loose on it. So it notes, without sufficient training, there's little assurance that the users know and understand the ALPR policies and any recent changes or are aware of the limits on how they may use ALPR data. The data is sensitive because it's private people's information, and state laws require reasonable security procedures and practices to protect them. A basic protection for data that must be treated as sensitive is to limit who can access them. Skip on down here, page 30, and noted in page 36 and 37, state law requires enforcement agencies that operate, access, or use ALPR systems to protect their data, including the images, from unauthorized access, destruction, use, modification, or disclosure. And what they worked towards here a lot in this particular report was auditing of the use, auditing of the system. Said developing an audit of license plate searches would involve determining how many searches to review, how to select them, how frequently to conduct the audit. It says law enforcement agencies have often found evidence of misuse of their databases, showing the need for auditing. So, and then they recommended all 4 agencies needed to address the quality of the information users enter to the system as part of their searches. Okay, and there's talk in there in the report of how you have to tie your search to a case. You can't just say, oh, an investigation, undefined, get in there and do it. You can't just let any old, so one thing I'm requesting tonight is information on the policies that Ridgecrest has and how these access attempts are governed, who has to be trained in what fashion as to get into access to it, and do we even have an audit process that's even been thought about, okay? Because this is important to protect people. Now, something else I want to have passed out. This is something that I sent to all you earlier. This is an example of a sign that I believe was put up in one of the, sometimes they have neighborhood flock system implementation. And I'm requesting that the city take action and maybe have an item up here on the agenda at some point in the near future to put up signs under where these cameras are. There's going to be 23, 24 places around town where they're going to be mounted and looking at us 24 hours a day. I think that we deserve the respect to be told, look, here's a camera. Just as there's actually in California law, if you're going to have a full-up red light camera, you've got to have a notification sign. So what's the difference here? Why wouldn't we notify our citizens, give them respect of telling them that there's a camera looking at them? That's all. Thank you.
So, Mike, if it's okay with you, I will have the police chief talk to you directly, and I think he has answers for you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the floor? Anybody out in the audience? Yeah, please do.
Hi, my name is Sandra Boyle. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and
Oh,
clear.
That's really loud. I'm here to talk about SB 9. And the... Oh. Okay. Okay, is that better? Okay. That's okay. I'm here to talk about SB 9 and the influx of people in our town. And I'm really concerned about our city because we have no employment opportunities, we have no water, and we have no medical. So I do not understand. I know that SB 9 is mandatory, but there's got to be a limit. I mean, I counted all the permits that were pulled on the website, and I stopped counting at 938 new units. And that's just one person per unit. That's not counting the families or anything like that. I think that's a bit excessive. And I think there's cities along the coast that are exempt. And I don't know if Newsom was to pull this SB 9 tomorrow, I'm curious to know if our planning commission would pull all that stuff, if they would rescind it or just go ahead with it. I listened to the planning commission meeting the other night, and they were talking about building homes that are landscaped. I don't get that, because we have no water. Why would they landscape them? And then also, they're trying to change the flight path. I guess because they're building a bunch of new homes. And I don't know if anybody knows about the requirements of what's mandatory for a city with a population of 27,000. I mean, we're busting out at the seams here. And I'm just a concerned citizen because we have so many people coming in. And that's another thing too. I heard some people complaining that this new housing, they weren't given the opportunity to move into the new housing. Only the new people coming in were given the opportunity to move into the new housing. And that's not right. I don't think that's right. And I also, because I've been doing research on this SB 9, that if property is built under SB 9, it is to be SB 9 for 55 years. And that's a bit excessive. So I'm just a concerned citizen about the influx of people and where they're going to work, the medical and water, how we're going to do it. Me and my husband went to the dump the other day, and the line was back clear up to the street. And, you know, that's just an example of what's going to happen. So that's all I got.
I think there's so to some of your questions, if you'd like, we have both our city planner and our public works director, that any of those questions that you have, I'm sure that they can answer those questions if you want to engage with them.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Is there anybody else from the floor? Okay, then we can move on to the phones. The lights are green. Must be somebody on the phone. Caller, go ahead. We can move on.
Hello, my name is Yasmin Garcia. I did come to City Council a couple of years back and spoke to the council, presented an idea for an accessible playground for my daughter and children and other handicapped people like her. So far, I haven't heard anything, any kind of update. I was wondering who I can speak to regarding who could give an update on that, where we are, what the timeline is for that.
Sure. So currently, our Parks and Rec director is not present, but I will direct you to the city manager, and the city manager could definitely get you an answer on that. So after this, if you want to hold on, or we could get you his email address. You could trade emails, if that's sufficient.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Blades, I can answer that during my city manager comments.
Okay. Yeah. So you're probably not still on the line, but if you're still listening, the city manager is going to give you an answer during his city manager comments.
Yes, still here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any other callers on the phone and nobody else out in the seats, so we can move on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved. Oh, geez. Sorry, Solomon, I stepped right over it. It's this red and black writing. Council announcements and direction. So this is where we'll move on to the portion where, council, if you have anything you'd like to either give to staff or you have any announcements, please do this time. Skip, we'll begin with you.
They tend to begin over here. I don't know why, but my only comment is that I believe the Friends of the Library are still seeking a dwelling, figure 2,000 square feet, to put all of their books. The books that aren't currently part of the library need to be stored somewhere. And they've gone from asking politely to being slightly desperate for a dwelling, because the building that the books are currently in right now is about to be condemned. So if you have just the right building at just the right price in your hip pocket, pull it out, get hold of Dave Burdick, share what you have with him. Thanks.
No comments.
Mr. Rajaratnam? Nothing? And I don't have anything. So thanks for carrying the team, Skip. So consent calendar, and I don't know if I need to go through the whole that whole spiel again, but I will gladly pick up where I left off, and that is, if comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. So I will now read the two consent items. Proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated February 5th, 2025. Number two, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest setting a date for the unmet transit needs hearing. Is there any member on the council that would wish to pull an item? Seeing none, is there anybody in the public that would wish to pull one of these items? Seeing none on the council, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote. We have 4 ayes, 1 absent with Mr. Endicott. Motion carries.
We're now on to discussion and action items. Number 3, a resolution to approve. Oh, you're right. We changed this around. So those of you who were not here at the beginning, when we started the closed session, we juggled some items. We moved number 6, city response to Indian Wells Valley Water District letter dated February 3rd, 2025. Mr. Keith Lemieux will be reporting out on that. Thank you. Keith, take it away.
Hi, folks. It's been a while since I've appeared in front of the public here, even virtually. So this is a request by the Water District wanting to enter into some form of agreement with the city in order to secure the ability to use the recycled water for purposes of developing a recycled water project. I provided a staff report to you folks. The short answer is that regardless of what the city's intention might be on this item, it's basically not possible at the moment because the rights to use the water are currently subject to an option agreement that we executed with the Groundwater Authority, who at the time was reviewing and considering that project and the viability of the project. They actually spent some money on a feasibility study. The good news is that, you know, the water district actually sits on the board of that entity. So, you know, I think the appropriate place for them to raise these concerns would be with the Groundwater Authority at this point. There's really not much the city can do. So that concludes my report.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Lemieux. So before I ask for public comments, are there any comments here on the board? Nothing? Okay. So now we'll ask for any public comments on item number 6, which is now number 3.
Ron Kosinski from the Indian Wells Valley Water District. First of all, I'm a little disappointed that this got moved up on the agenda while the mayor was gone. I think it's very important that Mayor Endicott hears this discussion. He's not real familiar with a lot of these things. There's some things that we're talking about. So my request would be that you table this until another council meeting, we can have him present, although I hear he may be on his way here.
Yeah, so he's in another meeting, and he's very aware. We talked to him that we were going to move this up. He understands why we moved it up.
Well, let me ask you this, in lieu of that, can you go ahead and delay discussion, maybe one or two more items at least till maybe he gets here? If not, we can continue.
We have a board here, Mr. Kaczynski. I don't see why we
Okay.
can't move forward.
All right. So to address.
Oh, there's your
There he
ask and
is.
you shall
Yeah,
receive.
I know. Plus, I want a chance to formally welcome to the council. He's a fellow Hoosier from Indiana, and I want to welcome him here.
Mr. Endicott, you can have this back.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Kyle.
Hopefully I'll be done in 4 minutes. Hopefully you're not going to hold me that because we're the ones who help discuss this. Keith's presentation was correct. The one thing that needs to be reminded of is that on both times, well, I'll go very basically on the report. Number one, the city signed the agreement with the GA on November 19, 2020. It's due to expire on November 19th, 2025, this year, okay? And at that particular point, it now becomes your wastewater to do what you wish to do with it. The decision to suspend the project by the GA was done twice, in August and October of 2023. Both times, our representative on the GA asked at that point, will the GA allow, I don't know how he prepared to put it, allow the city to work with the water district in an agreement to attain the use of the wastewater for beneficial use for the community. And both times the response from the GA was yes. So we felt, okay, the okay is to go ahead and move ahead. If the fact that the contract is the only thing that's holding it up, that contract expires in November. And I wholly would hope that this council, and all the district is asking for is fairly simple. We want an agreement that if we expend the money to do the analysis that we feel is necessary to see whether that project is a feasible project that can create something that is good for the community, and it also allows the beneficial use of the wastewater. Before we commit to doing that type of engineering, and I think all you would agree that we would have to know that if it turns out that it proves out, then we want to know that the wastewater is available to us. There's a good possibility it won't prove out. But the point is that before the district starts spending money to do an analysis of it, then we want to know from the city that that water, sans the water that's set aside for the Naval Weapons Center, which I think is roughly 500 acre feet, that water is available. And that's all we're asking, is that this council direct the staff to work with the water district to come up with some form of an agreement that is beneficial to all, that says, okay, you go ahead and proceed with your project. If the project turns out, then the wastewater can be used in the project to the beneficial use of the community. That's what we're asking. And to me, it's fairly simple. If we have to wait till November of this year till the contract with the GA expires, then we wait till the contract expires. But like I said, the GA has already given the okay to move ahead at 2 separate occasions to our representative on the GA. And so that's why we're a bit flummoxed that when that okay was given, that our general manager, who's here to answer any questions if you like, when our general manager began to discuss with the city, then it wasn't entertained that we could do that. And that's why we are where we are, because I believe it's a council decision. It's that you need to take into account. I tried to list some things which I thought were important. Community. What's good benefit? Benefits our community? Beneficial use of the water. I mentioned that the contract ends on November 12th, 2025, and that that if the engineering costs showed, engineering and operational costs, one thing we believe the water district, before we go into anything, we want to know the economic impact. What's the cost up front? What's the operating cost? If it turns out that comes out to be a positive factor, then we'll be able to move ahead. If it turns out to be a negative factor, then we say to the city, okay, we don't need that water. And you're free to do whatever you want to do with it. So that's what we're asking. And I think I would think it's a simple ask, especially since the contract's expiring. So I'm available for any more questions. One other thing. I don't want to go into the numbers. Obviously, there's all kinds of numbers done here by the GA, costs, operating costs, feasibility, how it's going to affect the aquifer. If you remember correctly, just a brief history. Back when our former manager was here, Don Zadiba, he was working with the city, Ron Strand in particular, in I believe 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in there together, when we were talking wastewater. So the district held a workshop here in the chambers, just the water district, to discuss wastewater with our engineering group who had put together preliminary cost and figures. And at that particular time, I believe that was I want to say July of 2020. And so we put together some costs, and we as a board said, hey, this is the route we want to take. And then, of course, then the deal came between the GA and the city in November of that year, and the whole thing got stopped. So we were working with the city towards using the water anyway, and then it just got, I would say, cut off at the knees, and it's just now stopped until now. So, and our numbers, because I'm sure you're going to say, well, hey, we've seen the numbers, it's not economical. I'm asking, rather than dig into the numbers, is that let the district do what they want to do and dig into the numbers. What is it going to cost? Is it feasible? What's the rate? And let us figure it out, because our numbers are widely, widely apart. For instance, we came up with about $50 million for the project, plus operations, and I think the GA came up with $140 million or something. So that's it.
Thank you, Ron. Are there any other public comments out there on the floor? I'll let him know.
Yes, Mike Neal again. I said this once, but everything that ever gets done bears repeating. And everything you heard from Mr. Kaczynski is what you needed to hear about that, in particular as far as mechanics, plans, costs, so forth and so on. What I'd like to, I'm going to continue bringing up the fact that that water that's coming through the wastewater plant was paid for by the Ridgecrest citizens, and any attempt to make some agreement for the city to sell the water out of that plant to anybody that's going to make use of it for the betterment of the aquifer and the citizens in this valley, it's just wrong to do, because it's making us pay twice. And the city clearly has more money than they even know what to do with from the 2% sales tax they're exacting on us now. I can make you numerous examples of what I consider just wasteful kind of endeavors, but I won't go into that, other than just say, the city doesn't need more money, because we're going to pay, given that scenario, the city sells the water, that means we pay for the water district to pump it out of the ground, it gets to the wastewater plant, the water district has to pay for it, they got to raise their rates on us to pay for water that's just going to flow, over the years it's been flowing into evaporation ponds. So what's the big use the city's getting out of that, and where's any value in that water? Just give it to the water district and let them make use of it.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Is there any other public comment on the floor? Anything on the phones? Okay, we're bringing it back to council. Is there any further discussion?
I do. I think the issue warrants further discussion, but I also think that we're constrained from offering full throat from our side on this issue by legal constraints, some of which are predicated in the adjudication. So I personally have to practice restraint and patience, and though it looks like when a reasonable issue like this comes up and we sit here mute, it looks like we're being unreasonable. We're just constrained, or at least I am to a great extent, and I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. Is there anything else? Go ahead.
So I just want to add that by no means does any of this discussion tonight have any interference with the water district being able to follow proper protocol, and that would be because of the agreement between the city and the GA that they can go to the GA with a plan and a project. They've had years of opportunity to do that. The GA would welcome any input from them, and so the protocol would be for them to proceed to the GA with their ask. So,
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Hinman. Mayor Endicott?
I feel like I slept in and I just missed the big test.
No, you definitely did. You didn't. You got here at the perfect time, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right. So no, I'm a little limited I'm limited in my knowledge of that right now. So
That's understandable.
yeah, well, I'll pass it on to you, Councilman Rajaratnam.
No, I have no comments.
Me either. And so now what I will do is pass the control of this meeting right back to you, Mayor Endicott.
Okay.
Okay.
And if there's no more for me, I want to wish you guys all a good evening and thank you.
Number 3.
No, and that's actually why we moved this up. We wanted to make sure that Keith could get off the phone and he wasn't sitting still on WebEx. So thank you, Mr. Lemieux, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you. Very grateful for you guys moving it up. Good night, everybody.
Yep.
good night.
All right, so I'm sorry about my absence. I've been in the LAFCO meeting, which I thought would not take that long, but surprise. All right. So, really, like they even took like a break, like a potty break in the middle of it. So, anyway, all right, so I guess we're moving on to discussion item number 3.
Be Mr. Freeze, it's going to be Mr. Strand.
Correct. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, if you recall back during the budget process last year, the IWV boosters, TV boosters came to council and requested a donation to help their free TV system they have on Laurel Mountain. We had budgeted $5,000 to be able to help them purchase uninterruptible power system equipment. We have gone through the process. We've purchased that equipment for them. Tonight in front of you is a donation agreement, so then we can complete the process. If you guys approve it, we'll be able to donate the equipment, then they'll be able to take possession of it and install it on the mountain. The benefit that we have to the city from these folks is they do provide a TV service for free for a good portion of our community. They also provide a service for emergency operations services during times of emergency. They do a really good job. They're all volunteers. They take donations from those who wish to donate a little for their free TV service, but it's a worthwhile group. This is the second time that we have provided a donation to this group. So with that, I'm available for any questions. Would ask that you guys approve the resolution authorizing staff to sign that agreement for the donation agreement. And that time, if it's all approved, I'd like to have these gentlemen come up with and do a photo and then maybe take a short break so they have time to get the equipment out of here and take it with them. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
All right. Public first? Sure. Does the public have any comments on this that they wish to address?
Good evening. My name's Robert McGowan, and I am the current president of the board of the Indian Wells Valley TV Booster. We very much appreciate your consideration of this agenda item. I wanted to offer a little clarification in that the primary use for this uninterruptible power system is going to be to provide the city channel continued operation in the event of an emergency or any other power outage that we might experience. So we are looking at it very much from as a way to provide the city an added boost to emergency preparedness, and be able to provide that channel to the citizens in case of a emergency of just about any type. Thank you very much.
Any council members have any comments, questions?
I just have some comments. That's just like, I could not appreciate the service that you guys provide more. What you give back to the community is immense, and I think that a lot of times the community is not quite aware that how much we rely on you. So thank you deeply. I appreciate it.
I think it's a good project, and I'm willing to support this.
I concur, and we appreciate the work that you currently doing and that you've done in the past for the community, and so it is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I just add on what everyone has already said, so do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second. Motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries. We'll take a quick break while they...
First report for the general plan and housing element with regional housing need allocation progress.
I do not. Ron, do you have the clicker?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Oh, we got it back
He's
here.
got it back there.
I'll get it.
He was coming out, so.
It's coming your way.
Sorry, I didn't know you needed it. My bad.
If it don't want to turn on, it's impossible to turn it on. Oh, you got a green light, good.
Yes.
It's all in the wrist.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So tonight I have the annual progress report for our general plan and our housing element. This is a state-required report. So our housing element is part of our general plan, but it's separate. It outlays all of our housing goals and policies. So I do want to tell you guys that all the pictures that are in the background are actual projects from our community. So in the housing element progress report, we provide the state with all of the numbers of units that were done during the year. I do want to clarify what entitled, permitted, and completed means. So entitled means they submitted an application and that application was approved. Permitted means they actually submitted to the building department for a building permit. And completed means that it's a habitable structure. So for single family, there was 408 units entitled, 13 were permitted, and 11 were completed. For 2 to 4 units, we had 86 units entitled, 26 were permitted, and 31 were completed. For accessory dwelling units, we entitled 7, permitted 7, and completed 3. I also want to clarify that sometimes the application be in a previous year, or the building permit could have been in a previous year, so that's why you don't see those numbers matching for the calendar year.
My friend, may I jump in with a quick question, or shall I wait?
Go ahead.
We just heard through public comment from a lady sitting back there about a countable 938 new SB 9 units, which means they're visible. You can count them as you drive by. I think that's what she said. Was that your number, dear? Stop counting. Does what you're providing us here include that SB 9 sequence?
So, on the next slide, so SB 9
Sorry.
projects, SB 9 is the new state legislation that provides applicants the ability to do duplexes on single-family zoned unit lots. So, for the calendar year, which is the first year that we saw this, we had 26 units. So that would be 13 applications. So that's it. I don't know where that number she came up with was.
I was just counting the permits that were submitted on the website. Whether it's SB 9 or I was just counting the permits.
Our permits aren't listed on the website.
Oh, well, there's some building permits on the website. Under that little picture.
Okay. If we can have her go and then we can have comments after,
Oh, well, he has.
that's fair.
So ministerial and discretionary approvals. So just to clarify, ministerial means that the applicant met state required standards, and then we approved it at a staff level. And discretionary approvals are those projects that come before public hearings. So this is a new RENA year too, because we have a new housing element. So RENA is our regional housing needs allocation numbers, and those are assigned by the state. So in this calendar year, for 2024, for moderate income, we had 61 units, and for above moderate, we had 14. So the determination for income level is just based off of housing prices. So most of those moderate are infill, so in places like Ridgecrest Heights, and then the above moderate are like on Abigail and Thomas.
Sorry, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
If you can go back one slide. So what's the determination between moderate and above moderate? Is that a,
So it's based on the housing price based on Kern County. So what they determine what the moderate housing price is for Kern County. And if you look in the report, it actually further clarifies what that is, but
okay, sorry.
that's okay. So our general plan is our long-term blueprint for growth. So what we did this year, we had 3 amendments to our zoning code. We further defined what accessory structures are and what those development standards are, not to be confused with accessory dwelling units, but more like sheds and garages. We also clarified and fixed our medium-density residential for permitted uses and conditional uses. And we also did some state-mandated updates for permitted uses in residential zones for residential care homes and employee housing. For our circulation element, we had projects for West Ward, we had the culverts in Gold Canyon, the Bowman Channel study, Measure V paving, and the unmet transit needs. Community design and land use, I just put those together because generally those projects go together. So we had site plans for Wendy's, the Ridgecrest Medical Transport, which is the picture in the background. Onstott Storage had a site plan. We did a CUP for High Desert Haven, and then the Balsam Street purchase. Our open space and conservation, we had lots of activity for our new Penny Pool Aquatic Complex. We had some fencing for Leroy Jackson, the skate park, shades, and the tennis courts. Health and safety was our school resource officer and the flock, and then other police equipment. And for housing, we had the track map extensions, and those extended for 423 units of potential. And then we had a couple of abatements and the CUP for High Desert Haven again. So some of the goals that we have for this current year, we're working on a commercial landscape design standards. Just kind of going over what we want to see in commercial landscaping. Obviously, it'll still be low water, but just kind of further defining what we want to see. So that will be in Planning Commission to begin with. We have some rezoning still for professional office and some single-family, multifamily. We are working on the GIS zoning map, and then we are working on the standard building plans. This year, we should begin working on the Kern multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and we're hoping to get a final approval on our housing element. We also were awarded a grant, so we will begin an update for our general plan for our military sustainability element. Currently, it's out of date. The most recent ACU study isn't incorporated into our general plan, so that's what that activity will do. And then we have a housing development assessment report that we also have grant funds to complete. So this went to Planning Commission in January. And then the action that staff is requesting tonight in that resolution is for you to direct staff to submit this report by April 1st to the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Office of Planning and Research.
Are there, are there any public comments?
If you don't mind coming up to the microphone, so we could all hear you, or they can hear you. That way everybody out on YouTube land can hear you.
Good girl, Rika. Thank you. So how many housing units do you actually have permits for? Do you know that number? And how many are waiting for zone change?
We have no zone change applications. So when you say, you mean how many do we have building permits for right now?
How many units or new units are going to be built in Ridgecrest? I'll put it that way. Do you know the answer to that?
So that's speculative, because there are people that have entitlements, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will build. So entitled projects for 2024, there's 501 units. Of those, only 45 have permits.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Council?
I'm sorry, go. Yeah, we are. Go ahead.
I jumped in again.
No,
I should have
no,
looked
we
around
need to start with
before I
you.
talk.
Yeah, we're always, we set up a pattern, we might
Yeah.
as well follow it. Start with you.
I'm so sorry. This says, your plan says that landscaping requirements are going to be formulated for commercial structures?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is going to Planning Commission with some potential commercial landscaping standards.
Standards.
So, I mean, obviously, right now, we have ordinances that say, things should be weeded. But as you can see, driving around town, some of our commercial plazas have landscaping that is now turned to dirt.
Neglectful.
So we would like to kind of develop what we'd like that to look like, but still maintaining, obviously, our water standards, but just developing further what we want developers to provide back for our community.
Oh, I think that's great. You're invited to join us. The City Org Committee, which meets on the first Thursday of each month, will start the long narrative and conversation on blight. This issue will be part of that conversation. When it looks like it's going to come up, I'll give you a call, and you're invited to join us.
I will be there, sir.
No further comment.
No comments.
I've nothing, thorough report. I did finally find the moderate and above moderate. I was trying to find what AMI meant. I don't, because it says it's 80 to 120% AMI.
Adjusted median income. And
Okay.
so the state releases annually what that is for every county.
Okay. Okay. Average median income, all right. That's all I have. So now, like a motion to put this for a vote so that they can send it to I don't remember what you said, the HCD. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second.
Please vote.
Starting to understand this process.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the work on that, by the way.
Mayor, just for the record, $63,883 is the household median income in Kern County.
Can you say that one more time?
$63,883. It's a family, that's a family.
All right. Move on to item number 5, discussion of blight within the community. Councilman Rajaratnam.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. This item, I brought it up in the last city council meeting. I wanted to have this on the agenda as a discussion item for a few reasons. One is, I know this is going to city org. Once it goes to city organization committee, then I have to shut my mouth. I can't say anything at the committee meeting. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about this at this city council meeting. And the second reason I wanted this on the agenda is to recognize this problem which we have been facing and to come up with solutions which the city org would be taking care of. And also the third is to give opportunity to the public to express if they have any concerns or any ideas, if they want to speak up. So actually this item, the talk regarding cleaning up the city and the blight around the city, I brought it up 1 year ago, and the very fact that this is coming up again after 1 year, which I feel is we did not follow up on the discussion we had 1 year ago. It is probably my fault. I did not follow up. I should have followed up on that every city council meeting to make sure our staff are doing what they are supposed to do. And it is not to point out any fingers though. So we want to identify the problem and we want to have a solution for this, because this is being discussed for a long time. And I feel that we are not giving the importance that is required for this issue. I'm pretty sure our staff are doing their diligent work, and I really appreciate that. I know code enforcement, when I say code enforcement, I'm only talking about the vacant, abandoned, and deteriorating houses. I'm not talking about RVs parked in the road or anything though. So this code enforcement job is a very difficult and a tricky job. I understand that because I was on the planning commission. I have seen how things work in this environment. I took a ride with code enforcement officers 1 year back, and then they took me around, they showed me how they enforce the code, and I really appreciate what they're doing. And I also appreciate the professionalism they showed, and I appreciate the gentleness they showed. They need all those things when they try to deal with people, at the same time enforce the code. So I really appreciate what they are doing. While I commend their work, I also recognize the fact that we are not scoring 100% in this area. I have brought issues to city staff like chain link fence around the Bowman Channel and some other deteriorating houses. So those are the areas where we need to work and make sure that these things are taken care of. I don't know whether it is because we don't have enough code enforcement officers or because we don't have the continuity with the code enforcement officers because of the frequent turnover, or simply because we are not motivated, we don't want to take action in this area. Having said that, I have one question actually. Cleaning up the city, like the trash as well as junk lying around. So does it come under code enforcement or does it come under city public works?
Well, it depends on where the trash is at. If it's in the public right-of-way, we do have 2 employees that have been going around the city and cleaning up every day. They also make sure that the sidewalks are clear with overhanging branches, and so they're busy quite a bit. And those folks came on a couple of years ago through a grant that we got through the county. Private property, that is up to the individual property owner. Normally, the stance that code enforcement has taken has been compliance, to try and get voluntary compliance. As this issue's come forward with the council, understanding that there is a little bit of frustration about the number of cases that they're getting through now. They're probably working 60 cases a month. So we are working to try and figure out how we can work through these a little quicker, and that might be issuing citations quicker instead of working with people a little bit more gently. We do have 2 code enforcement people who are doing a great job. They are busy. They're handling the day-to-day calls that come in, so that number, we do plan on making that a component of the city org to report out on those numbers, because I don't really think that because you're not seeing it's because it's being cleaned up, it's being addressed. The issue is that it's probably greater than what we can probably handle under our current enforcement tactic. So through the city org process, we'll obviously come in and we'll talk to you about, how this is working, how it's going. I don't think there's any town that we can drive through where you cannot find some areas that have issues that need to be cleaned up. We're always gonna have them, it's human nature. It just depends on how strong of enforcement the council wants staff to take. So like I said, that can all come out through the committee. But normally picking up trash on people's private property is those people's responsibility, not that of the city. We do have that crew that can be used to help reduce the cost on some properties that are blight, where we can charge back the property owners for the abatement. But the problem with that, though, is if we start using our people to clean up private property, then the public property is going to suffer. So, like I said, it's a balancing act. We do have our 3rd code enforcement officer that is going to be coming on. And talking with Heather Spurlock, we're looking at, there is an issue with some houses that probably need to be abated and tore down. We still need to talk to the chief, but there might be a way of centralizing that duty to that new employee so we have the continuity, because we do budget money every year to be able to do those larger abatements. Where the issue comes in is where we have the issues that are very expensive, and sometimes we can hire a receiver to come in and then address it because it's a huge issue. It's an issue that has to be dealt with in court. But you have to keep in mind is the city fronts those costs until that issue is addressed through the receivership, through the court. So some of those things, even though we wish them to be taken care of quickly, can take years to get through the court process. As you know, we dealt with the Dale Howard issue out in the Heights. That took us 3 years and about $500,000 out of the general fund to address that. And that was a long-standing issue that dealt with that. So staff we are interested in addressing this blight issue. We're interested in trying to make our town look a little bit better. It's probably more of an attitude and culture issue than anything. And so it's more about, getting people to change their habit of, making sure they're not leaving couches on their front yard and tires and vehicles on their rims in the driveway. So a lot of it's just gonna be, working as a community, working with the council, and trying to find that balance of moving this thing forward.
Yeah. I agree, our staff is working, they're working hard, and I'm not blaming them at all,
Right.
so,
No, no, I don't.
But
I
whether
see
we
it.
need to have more staff, previously we had 3 code enforcement officers, I think a couple of years back in our budget. And then Officer Amber was taken out to dispatch, and we have 2 code enforcement officers now. So maybe we should look into increasing that to 3 officers again.
We have the third officer coming back. Yeah, part of that could be, a salary issue where those positions are paid a little bit low. So we do have our salary survey that's coming back, that we're taking a look at that. That might be a way of addressing that turnover in that position.
Okay, yeah. With Measure V passing, probably we should be able to afford to pay more. So,
Yes.
I think it's all right.
We should, yes. Like I
If
said,
it is required, probably that's what we need to do. So,
Yeah, there is the intent to staff to still address some of these positions that we have within the city that are still below market.
Yeah, I know we all recognize this is a problem we have been facing for a long time. I know Councilman Blades organized a couple of trash cleanup events. Thank you for doing that. So that shows that there is a need for that to be done. And also, few years back, 3-4 years back, I think, Ridge Project has taken up cleaning up the city. I want to take this opportunity to thank Ridge Project led by Gary Charlan and Warrens for taking up this job. But how much can they do and how long can they do? So ultimately, it falls on our city administration to take care of this. So that's the point I'm coming up, so.
I'll be frank with you, this is not something that we're going to solve. You will never solve this issue. You will manage this issue, but you will never solve it. It's like crime. You're never going to solve crime, you're going to manage crime.
Yeah.
We can manage how the community looks. I think a lot of it has to do with people taking pride. Part of the issue was, frustrating for me was, we had that order that came out from the state on the conservation. The water district sent out letters to all our businesses, basically informing them that if they didn't turn off their water because of the drought, that they could receive significant fines. Well, that order has since been lifted, but as a result of it, all of our landscaping on China Lake Boulevard is dead. And that's one of the things I've been talking to Heather about is how do we address this? How do we fix that? We know we need to be better stewards of our water. We know we have the zero-scape ordinances where you just can't put grass in your front yard anymore. That's not part of our code anymore. But how do we get people to, what's our standard going to be for a front yard? Is it acceptable to have just dirt out there? Is it acceptable to have dirt and weeds? And I think that's part of when we start looking at what are our standards for the community going to be. One, it's going to have to be a public conversation because part of this is getting people to take care of their front yards. And because of people turning their water off over the last 10 years, we went from a community that had a lot of nice, pretty front yards to a community that has very little. And part of that, I think people feel in some regards that it hits their pocketbook. But I think also part of it is people feel there's a civic duty to, reduce watering if we have a water issue. And I think we have a water issue. So I welcome this being brought up in the committee so we can, move forward. I think it's going to be a learning experience for those on the committee to figure out how much we are actually doing. I know when I was chief and when people finally figured out how much effort we actually had on it, they really didn't know. You don't know blight's not there in areas that's already been cleaned up and addressed. All you see is what still needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, we need to deal with this.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. I know with the city organization committee taking up this, thanks Councilman Gorman for spearheading this thing. So I know this issue would be taken care of down the road. So finally, I have a couple of suggestions to the new committee. Maybe you can carve out a subcommittee like Blythe Committee out of city organization committee like we did previously for Media and Art Committee from City Org. And also, I don't know if this is possible on this or not, but we had community leaders on the Media and Art Committee. So maybe you should think of having some community leaders on your committee. It is up to you. So I just wanted to throw those ideas to you. So thank you very much. So that's all I wanted to share today.
All right, is there any public comment? There we go.
Hi, how are you? Gary Charlon. I'm really excited about this opportunity to see the leadership of the city council getting behind us. It's been a battle for a number of years of trying to get this thing going and getting the leadership, and that's what it's going to take, right? And I'm not going to disagree with you saying it's not going to be an easy fight. But I think if we wanted to help change our community and make it better, we're going to have to fight, right? And we're going to have to do some things that, and it's going to be a great time to do it because insurance companies don't want houses that are not being taken care of. So they're going to help you with the fight. We should get the fire department. Many years ago, they used to go around and write tickets if there was fire hazards out there. Maybe we can get them involved. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can take a look at and if we get together as a group and talk about those things and think outside the box, right? And try to be committed about cleaning up this town. I get frustrated, and I've taken some of the council people out and shown them different properties and things are going on. I'll use the example of we were trying to increase Balsam Street, right? And we're trying to get people to come out, which I think is wonderful that you're doing that. But these people can't park. There's not enough parking on Balsam Street. Don't want more parking, but they're parking on the side streets, right? Going through the alleys. If you haven't done that, you need to go see what they're walking through. Tires, trash, sticker bushes. It doesn't present the city very well. And those are the type of things that Ridge Project was trying to work on, trying to build a community to take responsibility from even their own yards, right, on the outside. It worked for a while, and then Kyle's tried to do his couple of things there too. It's a battle, right, buddy? So it's not something cannot ignore it anymore, because we talk about tourism, right? And you have people driving through these different streets or coming in those areas, and they're looking like, what is going on here? So that's why I'm saying this is serious, because we want to do tourism, but then it's like selling your house. You put it for sale, and it's a mess inside, outside. What's the chances of that really selling well or getting the price you want? So we need to really I'm probably really over-passionate about this thing. As a matter of fact, I think I'm probably too far on it, but I can't help it. It's in me, and I believe that it's not just, it's our duty to try to get people to understand to take care of our properties. I mean, I get frustrated when I see people on a house off of Upjohn, and that house has been, I don't know, 10 years, maybe longer, and we're starting to get some work on, which I thank you for that. But as a neighbor living next to it, I'd be calling you guys every freaking time saying this is enough. And I'm not sure why people are just okay, and maybe we just become complacent and we're okay with this stuff. We shouldn't be okay with it. And we need to put more money to it. I'm thinking that last bond, maybe there'll be some extra money to help out, Ron, you guys to do a little bit more. And I know it's not easy, the rules and the regulations, but sometimes we just got to get excited about making this town a better place, right? And not just for people to come here, that the people live here. So they stay here, instead of just get frustrated with it. So I'm with you on this. I'll help as much as I can. I'd love to see something happen. Didn't mean to take all your time up, but I want to make sure I'm sorry about my passion. I can't help it. So my wife has to put up with it too. So
That's good. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Never complain about passion.
over 40 years. I don't have any big complaints about what you're talking about. I don't see anything's really changed very much since the time I first came here. It's like every town on the face of the earth, and the extent is different, but some places where certain people wouldn't want to live, and other people, places where almost anybody would like to live. Everybody would love to live up on the hill where they got the great houses and the mountain view, but they can't afford that. And some people just have different taste, and that's just what it is. And one of the things that could help, and you know, this is something that you can put out there, but it's not going to get spread very far, is just, you know, if you don't like the way something's going on in your neighborhood, go down and talk to your neighbor. People have the worst habit in the world of, especially if they happen to know a city councilman, run to daddy. You know, daddy, Johnny won't clean up his yard. Daddy, Johnny won't clean up his house. Well, it's a matter of philosophy. What is the city government's job supposed to be? I mean, really, what's it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be about getting everybody to clean up their room? I don't think so. And I think if you thought about it very long, I hope that you wouldn't think so. And what I hear up here tells me that, well, what's inevitable and is going to happen anyway is already happening. We're soon to have 3 code enforcement, 3 guys. And I've seen them driving up and down the street in my neighborhood where there's not a problem. They're driving up and down the street, looking side to side, see, well, you know, does this guy have a little bit of trash out in his yard? He's left there too long. Does this guy park his car on the street too long? You know, and they go, what a waste of time. You know, that's money that could be spent catching drug dealers or something better. And to hear talk about, let's have a blight committee, that's just typical government bureaucracy talk. That's just the way people get to thinking if they don't stay true to the ground basics. You're not going to change a lot. I've heard this over and over and over for 20 years. That's, if you could believe it, how long I've been coming down here trying to be involved, trying to make a difference. And I've heard this multiple times. We had this effort and this. Well, you know, tell people clean up your yard, don't throw litter out your window, whatever. We've already got 2 guys full-time picking up trash, cutting tree limbs. We've got 3 code enforcement officers. Why isn't that enough? Why, just because you hear a complaint from somebody doesn't mean that some big movement has to get started. I mean, tell a guy to go talk to his neighbor first instead of coming to their councilman and trying to get the heavy hand of government slammed down on their head. And you know what happens when you get a code enforcement officer on somebody's case, don't you? They talk to them. Then something doesn't happen, they might talk some more. Then something happens, they write them a citation. And if something doesn't happen after that, they'll pay a boatload of money to some contractor who is just thrilled to get that job because he's going to get 5 times the going rate for whatever work they call him in to do. And the city doesn't care. The code enforcement officer doesn't care because it'll cost them a dime. But that property owner is going to get liened on his house for 5 times what it should have cost. Simply because, well, you know, he disagreed about that piece of sidewalk out in front of his house with the code enforcement officer, but the code enforcement officer, it's very subjective, but they have the upper hand. And if somebody gets them on somebody's case, then you got a problem coming your way, especially if you get a clash of personalities going on. So, you know what? I just say, I hate to sound this way, but just find some better things to do with your time than worrying about, let's pretty up the town. Okay?
Since this is a discussion item, can I actually discuss?
I'm sorry?
Since this is a discussion item, can I actually discuss?
Yeah, sure.
I can. Mr. Neal, could you come back up? Sorry. So,
I appreciate the opportunity.
So I understand your complaint, but sit with me for just a second.
Sure.
Do you also disagree that police officers should conduct their business? Because are they not just code enforcement officers? Isn't the speed limit a code enforcement? It's somewhere in our law that says that they cannot go over the speed limit. You have to have certain things with your car. So is that also a waste of money?
Technically, you're right.
So if we're asking code enforcers to go around and the codes that we've agreed on and that have been lawful for housing developments, because I assume there's a purpose for the codes that we have for housing. We can ask other Travis about that, but I gotta find a better name than other Travis. Thing two? I don't know. So, I mean, isn't that a worthy, because if it, you know, let's talk about trash, right? Trash accumulation around a house. I mean, there's a lot of things that can occur with that trash accumulation. We could get fires, we could get animals bedding in there, right? It could be a hotbed for someone, and now you as the neighbor, you're affected with that as well.
Right.
But I agree with you completely that maybe there should be an intermediate step with just going over and talking to your neighbor. But if that doesn't work, we have to have code enforcement so that we can actually get things done, get things cleaned, so that it's not a risk to you as the neighbor or the other person.
And there I don't disagree with things that are at active risk. And I just mentioned that code enforcement, quote unquote, in and of itself can be very subjective. I'll give you an example. They hauled a young lady in here years ago, probably close to 20 years ago. She parked a car in her driveway. She didn't drive it, it sat there. It accumulated a few pine needles around it. Code enforcement hat was on her tail just because, well, it didn't look very good. Okay, that's, in my opinion, that's ridiculous. But if you got guys, you know, weeds growing up around, wood fences, fire hazards, that's in the fire code. So, you know, then that makes sense. That's why I said, you know, just because it doesn't look good doesn't make it wrong. But posing anything that government's job is to do is to intervene for people causing harm to other people. So something like that, I am totally fine with, you know, but I've seen it. It happens. You could Google it. You could find all kinds of examples. You know, oh, your grass is more than 3 inches high. You got to cut it. Well, give me a break. You know, people got better things to do than worry about that. So it can get out of hand. And when you start making a public effort, oh, let's clean up Ridgecrest, you know, whatever terms you want to put, then it starts getting into, oh, Daddy, Johnny won't clean up his room kind of deal. And we don't need that. People got better things to do with their time than, oh, I got a little bit too much trash that got accumulated, blown up in my front yard, and I got sick for a month and I didn't clean it up.
So the second thing I wanted to ask you, because you did talk about subjective code enforcers, is that the only example of the car parked sideways with the pine needles? Because I
That's the only one that calls to mind just because it was so
egregious,
kind of blatant, ridiculous, you know, yeah.
Okay, because, I mean, my hope is, right, it's not a subjective thing, that the code enforcers can be objective, because if they bring something in here that's not objective, not objectively sound, found in code, then I agree with you, that would be a waste of time. But, I don't know,
Yeah.
Skip, you had that impassioned speech last week, I think we can do it, so.
And you have to agree that, you know, think that a code enforcement officer, it's job assurance for him to find code enforcement actions to have to take. So if he's running out of blatant things, then he might, you know, just start saying, well, I've got to find a few more things here. Let's go do this or do that. And it doesn't have to come to fruition, but he can, you know, start an action. And it causes, I have a sister-in-law out of this state, very poor, surviving in a house that's in bad condition. Her yard isn't, you know, Harmon Garden's pretty, and she's getting picked on by code enforcement people, and they're, you know, coming at her like, you have a flower pot and it doesn't have flowers in it. And I mean, that kind of thing. You know, people don't need that, and it's a waste of our tax money to pay people to take those kind of actions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We have a couple more.
Oh, this is working out. Look at how it generates discussion, just the issue itself.
See,
Bandwidth widens.
It all benefits from your last impassioned speech. Ron wasn't here for it, so he doesn't know.
Oh, I have a suggestion about all the property you're talking about that's pretty dirty. just around the corner from me, there's this house that's been there for as long as I've lived in the area, and that's 17 years. Because of this low-income stuff, they've built right next door on each side of the house 6 duplexes. I don't even know how they're big enough to turn around in them. But, I mean, how would you guys like 6 duplexes built right next to your house? That's not cool. So my suggestion would be, I know a lot of these properties are probably abandoned, and a lot of them are right here on the south side. And why can't we shove that low-income housing in those areas? All the abandoned property and, you know, wouldn't that work? Instead of putting them right next to big homes that have been there forever? I mean, this poor guy, you can walk out his front door and there's 6 duplexes. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Cortez. I'm with WM. I just wanted to say we're here, your local team is here to assist the city and the committee in combating blight in the community, whether that's through roll-offs for cleanups. I know we've partnered with the Ridge Project in the past, and we're happy to continue to do so. So just wanted to let you guys know we're here to be involved and assist as needed.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. So, Mayor Nakot, you're not aware, there's been a couple times I've helped to arrange in the community cleanups, and each time Waste Management's been pretty good about getting roll-offs. Wherever I tell them to drop it, they'll drop a roll-off, and we can get them filled up. I've tried to partner with other organizations.
Okay. All right, any council comments?
I do.
Skip, let's start with you.
The issue of blight was mostly brought to me by Gary Charlon over there. He marches into my shop and does what I call a TED Talk on many issues. I enjoy them a lot, always with passion. Indeed, Gary's passion will keep me well wound up and encourage me to address this issue from 360 degrees over the next year. And the difference between how I'm going to allow this issue to express itself is that I want to go out of the box. In the area of blight, I want to address the cure rather than simply, well, and heroically address the symptoms, which are blowing in the wind. And I got a feeling that in many ways, little cures exist that taken together can be a big, effective cure. Just now, Waste Management stepped forward and had a say, and indeed, there are households who just don't know how to use the dump. They can learn. I'll show them. Dumpsters need to keep them lids down, or the ravens will take everything out and the wind will spread it over the neighborhood. It happens constantly. I think that the city org effort that I'll get going soon will try to address the cure, knowing that from other councilmen here, the symptoms need also at the same time to be addressed. And overall, if we're looking at both, we'll find a way. We'll find a way to make beauty happen, and even without watering your front lawn.
Councilman Hayman?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. So I like the idea, and I appreciate Councilman Rajaratnam and Councilman Gorman for championing this. So I hear, the term blight and clean up the city, and, I've lived here a long time too, and I appreciate the efforts from Mr. Charlon and Kyle and other members who've worked to clean up the city, and I guess that falls under blight. You can drive around and see, trash in areas of empty lots and depending on the wind, my yard, because I'm on the corner facing the west at the end of the street, so everybody's trash when the dumpster lids come up. I got 10 kinds of leaves and everybody's trash I pick up. So, I mean, we always have a problem with that. My concerns are when we start dealing with individual properties and rights and who designates this standard at which, you know, we're going to govern everybody by on their yards or, and whether they meet the standard. I have a neighbor down the street that is just meticulous. I mean, it's a beautiful, perfect yard. And so, and I commend them for that. Others, you know, my neighbor next to me is single, widowed, low end, you know, well, probably very tight income, you know, and her yard, she does her best. Does it meet the standard of the lady down the road, the other house? Probably not. And so I think it's a good cause. I think we should press on. I think we got some issues that we need to make sure that we stay within the guidelines of what people's rights are. And, you know, I think I heard a little bit about the code enforcement, you know. Is some of the blight just because we didn't have enough code enforcement and people to go around and acknowledge it? I mean, there's one violation of code. There was a house, and it has been taken care of in town here, that their stuff just erupted out of their yard and onto the sidewalk and on both sides of the street, and it was a hazard to drive down the street at night because the lighting wasn't very good on that street either, and it was actually kind of dangerous. And so what the city did rectify that issue, and through code enforcement. And so is some of it due to the lack of that? Do we just need a few, enough code enforcement officers to go around and get people up if it's a fire hazard or if it's an actual safety hazard or those issues? So those are the concerns I'd like to see addressed too as we move through this, and to make sure that we don't, as Mr. Neal said earlier, there's people's individualness that we don't all fit on the same page, and somewhere in there's a fine line that we have to make that call. So that's all I have. Like I said, I do appreciate, I want to see a clean town. I really bugs me to, see, I don't even like driving into town when you see all the trash on the sides of the road, and it just starts you off on a bad image, from the get-go. So anyway, so I commend you guys, and I am behind you. I don't mean to sound negative, but I just want to,
I want to say, I know you have something to say, but I'm going to say something really quick.
You're the mayor.
Okay. So, I do think that we need to take, understand that the code enforcement, right, they are enforcing, set code.
Correct.
Right? They're not making, I don't know the example that you gave, Mr. Neal, but the idea behind it is that they are enforcing what has already been agreed upon. If we have a problem with what they've agreed upon, then we change that code, right? I don't think that we should limit the code enforcement individuals. But there are things set in place that we should follow as citizens we agree to. And if there are things that we want to fix, then we go about it through code change, but.
Yeah, I was just going to reemphasize that is that, we do have our ordinance that defines what a nuisance is. There are safety valves in the system. So if somebody gets a administrative citation, there's a hearing that they can have. I know that we've always taken the stance that we want voluntary compliance without resulting in a citation. I still think that can be accomplished to some degree. I think, maybe a few more people might get tickets instead of getting 3 or 4 warnings. They might get tickets a little bit sooner, but I still think my recommendation would be to still pursue the voluntary compliance, the education aspect of it. I do not think that, one, we have enough time to get petty and pursue things that we shouldn't pursue. Most of these cases are going to be fairly bright lined. So I'm confident we're gonna stay within the confines of our code. Now, when it comes to front yard standards, that's obviously a community conversation. That's something that's brought up through probably the planning commission or through through the committee, through council, before we make those changes. So I think there's enough work that needs to be done before we get to that point. So from my perspective, I don't think focusing on this is going to infringe upon anybody's rights, because I think we can drive around town and see enough that needs to be cleaned up that we're gonna be busy for a while before we ever think about getting anything petty. And if it does get to the point where there's a disagreement, there is that ability for people to aggrieve it. You know, there is a way to appeal it. And so there is that safety valve there.
Councilman Rajaratnam? Councilman Blades?
Yes, I have a few things, and the first is, I'll just put out more administratively, that the city has scheduled with the hospital a cleanup in April. That's going to be April the 26th. They're working on site selection. They have a couple different things in mind, and they'll keep moving to that. And if anybody in the community would like to reach out and coordinate some cleanups, this is what I used to do. We've had a couple of staff member chains out, swaps, and I would get a hold of the groups that wanted to do it, and then I would talk to the staff members, and city staff started just taking care of things. And so there's a reason why I quit doing community cleanups, because if groups wanted to do something, they just get a hold of staff. And it was easy as that. The city would even go out of their way to provide trash bags, gloves, things to pick up, and then waste management would have a roll-off out there. Really, whenever we requested it, I mean, we have contractually written in that they need to, but they went out of their way to supply it whenever we asked for it. It was, that was a good thing. The only other thing, and so if anybody is looking to schedule, you can get a hold of Jennifer Ricketts, you can get a hold of Heather. We can just get a hold of city staff, and we can schedule a community cleanup. It's very doable. The next thing I wanted to say, and it's sort of teetering between all of you, I deeply respect this conversation you're carrying on, because I believe you're looking for a deeper meaning and a deeper fix, Skip, so I can say thank you for that. Solomon, you're ever vigilant, and I like how you gain a different perspective from all these different folks that you talk to. I respect that. But I wanted to strike a balance between it's very tenuous this staff time. I can tell you the one thing that I have slammed my head against on this council is staff time. And what it always comes down to is, and this is maybe more, jovial, but I will come at Ron, because I too get pretty impassioned. I don't show it up here a lot, but I come at Ron like a house on fire, and I'm like, I would like this, I would like to see that. And he says, you tell me then what you would like to see fall off the plate. Because if you really think that our city staff isn't working at full tilt, I'm like, no, I know they are. And he goes, okay, well then, what would you like to see fall off the plate? And and over the years, I've learned to judge what that means. I've learned to talk to the various department heads and gauge how that's going to pan out. And so really, I'm more aiming this conversation at you, Travis, just because you are newer to the council, that yes, good conversation to have. We should keep it going. We should keep the enthusiasm. And I can tell you that a lot of those cleanups they fell off likely because I wasn't getting involved and I wasn't showing some amount of leadership. And I should have done that. I got busy like we all do, and I passed it off, and that wasn't responsible of me. But there is a balance, and being responsible with taxpayer dollars means what are we going to do with that staff time? It's something that we have to constantly gauge up here. And I can tell you the very uncomfortable thing that will happen is when and if, our code enforcement guys they're already doing their job, they're already staying pretty busy. If more code enforcement comes on, and you can expect to see some heated, lengthy emails in your inbox, because that's happened multiple times with people not happy about how things go. So I just wanted to strike that balance and let the public know that this is worthwhile. Gary, you brought up a lot of good points. I brought it up a few times in meetings as well. A broken window in a house, right, drives down property value. We all know that. You got to keep your place clean. We all should. But there's a balance, and I do like that. At least with the interactions that I have, our code enforcement has went out of their way to work with people. I'm talking work with them over years, in some cases. So I just, as long as we're keeping that in mind, because that use of tax dollars to to drive staff. Staff time is valuable. We got to be careful how we use it.
Okay, so I have some questions or things to say afterwards, but first, Aaron, you heard he said the blight in this town is his fault, right?
Yep.
That should be the headline? Okay. All right, so I guess this is a question for Ron. What type of legal issues do we face with code enforcement or us taking over or anything? Is there any issues with us going full?
Sorry. You mean as in regards to the committee? Well, the committee, in my view, will just kind of set policy and priorities of where we head. I think a lot of what I think staff will attempt to do is to kind of reveal to the committee what's actually currently happening with code. In other words, how many cases are we getting a month through the PD? How many are they handling? What are the dispositions? Maybe some photographs. Where we're heading administrative-wise, and let's say a change of our ordinance. How we maybe address some of these homes that are vacant. You know, we've dealt with a few of these abatements or receiverships over the years. We had one on Sidnor that it was in the courts for, I think, close to 4 years. And so I think part of it's just educating you guys on what our limitations are.
Okay.
You know, I think with having 3 code, I think that's sufficient. I think we're going to, you know, get a lot done. You know, maybe we can, you know, instead of giving somebody, you know, 2 months to clean up the property, we give them 30 days. They don't clean it up, they get a ticket. Usually money, hitting the pocketbook usually gets the motivation to get people to clean up stuff. And hopefully over time, you know, people will just self-adjust. You know, I mean, in the real world, you have property, you take care of your property, you clean your property. That's what I do at my house. You know, I take care of my lawn. Maybe it's just getting people to care a little bit more. And so it's never gonna, we're never gonna solve it, we're gonna manage it. But it's like anything else, people usually will pay attention to things that, you know, people pay attention to, right? So if we focus our efforts on this instead of that, well, people will, you know, it's like whack-a-mole. They'll clean up their property, but then something else will pop up. It always does, but that's okay.
Next question, how do code enforcement people get their tips to solve these problems?
Oh, we get quite a few of them, usually through the police department, through the internet, through our app. Email, all the above. They get quite a bit. Okay. And they address all of it.
Is there some sort of adopt a highway approach that we could do to city streets or something like that?
Well, we currently have 2 employees that pick up litter along our arterials and collectors, as well as addressing some of our weed issues and overhanging of trees. We still have to be very careful going onto people's property. We still have a constitution. People still have a constitutional right, and there's still a certain process we have to take to be able to get on somebody's property to clean it. So having people, yeah, you can do community cleanups where neighbors will help neighbors. That's usually a little bit better way of doing it. We have in the past, you know, neighbors have gotten together and cleaned up neighborhoods. You know, that's still available. Maybe have more of, you know, if the community has that as an ability, maybe they might do it. I don't know.
Okay. Honestly, so while I was a professor, one of my favorite subjects to cover was the individualist versus the collectivist. And I'm sure I'm going to put all of you to sleep with this. But there's a huge argument in political theory on what we actually are as Americans. Are we individualists or are we collectivists? I tend to believe that we have moved more to an individualist mindset where we tend to care about ourselves and how we are instead of the collectivist mindset. And I think this issue is one of those problems, right? That we see the downstream effect. So I love the passion. to get this done, right? But I still think one of the hurdles that I have when thinking about this, right, is we have to have other people think about other people. And
Yeah, you do have some, some church organizations that, will do community cleanups and stuff. So I think it's there. I mean, I think as a society with social media, even though we probably know more about ourselves than we probably should, but we're really less connected as individuals in person. So.
Absolutely, right? Social media is an oxymoron to me, right? It makes us way less social than we probably could be, right? Because we can see what they had for dinner and give them an awkward comment about it if we ever see them in public again. But no, I was struck with your neighbor that needs help. Like those are the people. I don't have a whole lot of free time, right? But give me her address, see if she wants help. I can come over and I can help, right? And I do think it starts with us. I joked with you that you were at fault, but I still hope that that's the lead of the article.
Roger that.
But, that's admirable, right? And if we sit up here and we just say, hey, the city needs to do this, that's one thing. But us actually putting, action to it is, I don't know, way more important to actually give an example of how we can help individuals in our community to move forward. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes back to like the broken window theory. If you leave a window broken, eventually the yard's not gonna be taken care of. Yard's not taken care of, then the fence gets broken. So when you do pay attention to the smaller stuff, people tend to be attentive to it. And in all frankness, we are just getting to the point staff-wise where we have that ability to focus in this area. So I think, the stance we've taken on has always been more of a gentle touch, so to speak, more trying to get people to clean it up. It's worked for the most part, but obviously, it appears that there's probably a little bit more we need to do.
I also think it's an entirely education thing because this is probably a little bit more embarrassing, so sorry, Kim, my wife, but we had people come up to the house, ask if they could landscape our property. I was like, our house looks fine. I don't see the problem. Then we ended up paying for some landscaping, and I was like, oh, that's what it's really supposed to look like. Okay, that makes sense. So some of it might just be an educational thing of you don't know what you don't know. Skip, or Councilman Gorman.
You got me thinking. It occurred to me that when the subject comes up, the marble rolls around in the sink and always goes towards the drain. When this subject of blight comes up, it doesn't take long for all of a sudden we're talking about the code enforcement officer. It goes right down there. And it occurs to me that this guy has a rough job. Talk about your typical code enforcement officer. By the way, it used to be called nuisance abatement. Perhaps he needs a new name, a new title. Doesn't matter. He must finesse his issue more strenuously than, say, legal counsel has to finesse issues he brings up out here. This person, this code enforcement officer, has to be Matlock rather than, I don't know, Kojak. That goes back. And it probably would be a good long-range strategy for Chief Mario to consider training for their code enforcement officers, training that allows them the vocabulary and the tactics of finessing a situation of blight in such a way that it doesn't victimize the person responsible. That's a tough job. Ron calls it being nice. It's possible to change many big things. Looks like Gary's going to join in the discussion maybe. Hot dog. We can keep this going all night. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet now. Thanks.
Based on my experience, Fred Booth, and I've worked with him many times, he was an amazing guy. And if he couldn't solve it through the city, he would call me and say, Gary, can you come over and help these people here with the sidewalk, or even this one was a hoarder and she needs to clean the front up. We need your help. I've seen them always be very, very kind and try to help people. I have not seen the other side of it, and they've gone out of their way, and they look for ways of how can we help them, right? People don't always agree with, it was an interesting story when we went out to this hoarding person, and Fred was just frustrated, couldn't get her to do anything. And so he asked me to go over and talk to her, which I did. And it was interesting in the fact that I learned about hoarding a little bit more than I would have understood before. He was having a problem with her just cleaning out her front, because we don't worry about the back, right? The city's more worried about the front end. And she's got these trash cans full of twigs and from the branches from the trees. And so I had a person there to help me. We were going to try to figure this out, what we could do. And she was having a hard decision to make which twig, which one I should get rid of, right? Most of us would not even think that would be an issue. It was amazing to see that her mind was working that way, right? And so I think that your concerns about here in Ridgecrest, I think the code enforcement people are really good people, So whether they're getting the training from the outside or inside or have it there in themselves, they're not people that like to force things. So they do want to make change, and they see it, but they're very kind about it. So I don't think you have to worry about that so much. At least the experiences I've had with them. And in talking about, I'll give you one last story because I could tell you tons. This lady, it was a claim I was on, and she had some roof damage on it. So she's 92 years old. It's on Florence Street, one of the nicest, cleanest yards you'd see. It wasn't that she had landscaping. She kept the weeds down in the front and the back. But me being on the roof, seeing the next door neighbor, went, oh my gosh. The front of the house was horrible, and the back house was full of stuff, right? And that could be a fire hazard, right? That could be a problem that she could have to deal with, right? And so you don't have to spend a lot of money on landscaping. It's just keeping it clean, right? Keeping the wood away, keep the weeds away, stuff that could be possibly fire things. So we don't have to get carried away and say we're going to make people do landscaping. We just want to take care of it a little bit, right? And so I think this is this committee, and you guys are now working on something. It's going to come involved with a lot of different things, but I guarantee it probably won't be being a force issue of just trying to make people do things and outside what the rules and laws are, right? So I thank you again for you guys getting this involved. And Skip has had to listen to me quite a bit. Solomon has too, and a few other people I've invited to take a look and drive around. So I appreciate that you guys did take the time. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. So is it, there's nothing to vote on, right?
No, that's it.
All right. So with that, we will move on to discussion item 7. Discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority did meet last Wednesday on February 12th, and I will go over some of the highlights of the meeting. First agenda item was the finalization of the settlement with Mojave Pistachios. That was basically just an overview. The settlement had already been formalized, and so there was just some brief discussion about the settlement. No action item. The next item was board review and potential action item on the periodic evaluation. So the periodic evaluation or 5-year update is from the DWR and is due in January. So it was postponed And in the postponement, it was, had been brought to the attention, to the GA that the Water District had other information, their model and data to put forward to the GA for inclusion in the 5-year update. So it was put off until February. In our last meeting, we reviewed it again, or well, the 5-year update, staff had presented it, so it was completed. And in discussions about it, the Water District, it came to the attention of the GA that the Water District did not have a model ready. And, their comment from the director was that they may have it ready in another month, or they will have it ready in the next meeting, or maybe May. But the GA decided to go ahead and post the periodic review and then wait until our next meeting in March to go ahead and approve it and move it on. So basically, it gives the Water District another 30 days to come up with their model and put it in place. So in the event they don't, it is very normal and easy for, if they bring information once that plan has been sent off to DWR, they can always come to the board with a model or their information, and you can file an addendum to the plan and to the GSP anytime. There's no limitations on that. And so that's kind of where we stand with the periodic evaluation and update. Look to having it done and completed at our next meeting. Next, we had the WERDA 24 letter of intent to the Army Corps of Engineers. And so that basically was a letter from the GA to initiate a relationship with the Army Corps of Engineers, who will be commandeering the interconnection pipeline. And so they will begin to communicate with each other and start that process. So that was pretty straightforward. Following that, we had the introduction of the second transient pool for discussion and comment. The second transient pool pertained to the settlement with Mojave. There's 20,000 acre-feet of water that will be formed into a second transient pool, of which 16,000 acre-feet will be offered to Mojave. Is like a first right offer on it. The remaining 4,000 acre-feet will be offered to small ag. And so there was just discussion about that to, make sure everybody was kind of clear on it, and there was no action item on that item either. Next, we have the consolidation grant funding budget, and so the that in item, I believe it was well, let us go into that one. So the consolidation grant funding is for wells that the GA received about $3 million for to help consolidate wells in the community and bring individuals that were having trouble with their water system into the either to consolidate or into the Indian Wells Valley Water District system. So we authorized a $50,000, there's been $3 million that was granted, but we authorized $50,000 to start the Stark, what they call the Stark well, or co-op, I guess. Consolidation, the Stark Consolidation Project, to bring water to, I think it's 9 residences that compose the Stark Street consolidation. So that was authorized. Following that, we had basically 3 amendments. I'll kind of group these together because they all pertain to the same thing. Provost and Pritchard is the engineering firm that is doing the preliminary design and engineering work for the pipeline project. And so there was an amendment for the contract service agreement with Provost and Pritchard for design services for the imported water pipeline, amendment to the contract for service agreement with Provost and Pritchard for the CEQA and NEPA, and again, another contract service agreement with Overland Pacific. And these are basically extensions to, so that Provost and Pritchard can meet their deadline in meeting the design completion. And last but not least was the walk-on item, I believe, on the, with the amendment to the Sigma implementation grant. And so the Sigma grant of $7 million, we have a timeline with which we need to have everything in order and the money appropriated and completion. So it was recommended that we extend that out because of Provost and Pritchard needing a little more time to finish up on their end. And so there was a slight amendment to it that needed to be in. And so, but anyway, it was agreed to go ahead and extend that, and that was sent in time to DWR to extend that finalization of that Sigma grant. So that concludes my report, and open to any questions that the council may have.
Skip? No? No? Okay, no? I have none as well. Does the public have any? We have public comments.
Yes, Mike Neal once again. I'm going to read you a post on Facebook that was on the city Facebook page. It was actually put out by the GA, which in my opinion is improper altogether. It's about the imported water pipeline, and it talks about what is obviously the comprehensive adjudication lawsuit with the water district about the whole treatment of how we're going to keep water flowing in the valley. And the last paragraph says, these legal battles are expensive for citizens and could drag on for over a decade, delaying the solution to our water crisis. And it says, this is a very definitive statement, the only viable solution, jumpstart construction on the Indian Wells Valley water replenishment pipeline. We need action, not more delays. I find that something I can't understand. When we have a claimed model by the GA, which they will not show or make available to the water district or the public, they just say, believe our number, one study. The water district is funded 4, and I think there's 5 or 6 other attendant lesser studies, all of which average, this was its average of all the 4 main ones that were done by different hydrology firms. One that used an advanced method, which very few people other than microwave engineers like myself even understand how it works, but it appeared that it worked like it should have because they did metrics on it. Come up with over 13,000 acre feet of recharge into this basin. And it came up with over 4 to 6 times as much water in storage as has been claimed by the GA. And yet, you get things like this, which I'm going to call scare baby publications. And they made these statements, oh, if we don't do this, we're going to run out of water in 40 years. That's ridiculous. And that's the kind of thing the GA's done the whole time it's been around. That made so many people don't believe the statements they hear from the GA, get upset at what they hear from the GA, and then they get the truth, and it has to come from the water district, and another study by the water district, by a financial consultant that they paid money to look at the whole actual projected cost for the pipeline. So does anybody listening who hasn't heard this before, be aware that this pipeline will at least double your cost for water. It's probably going to triple your cost for water. Anybody like having to pay 3 times more for anything that you have to pay for? Anybody, how many people can't simply afford that in this valley? And yet, the city will allow things like this, which as far as I'm concerned are entirely misleading, to be put on its Facebook page and support it. That's reprehensible. People need to step up and use their minds a little bit and look at the facts that have already been presented to the public instead of what shows all the signs of propaganda, which has been adhered to. This agenda was set in stone within 6 months after the GA was put in place. Same number has been thrown out, same claims been thrown out, proven not true, but yet you still get things like this.
I do think there was a couple bits of information I probably should add to the overall report. And this does pertain to the potential action item on the 2025 periodic evaluation. This is a staff report. So I'm going to highlight a couple areas of it, and then I'll be done. So the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority developed the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, the GSP, through a comprehensive multi-year process that included significant public and technical input from community stakeholders and groundwater pumpers. Central to the GSP is a detailed groundwater model created by the Desert Research Institute for the United States Navy. DRI, a globally recognized research institution affiliated with the University of Nevada, was engaged by the Navy to develop a groundwater model to assess mission readiness and the potential impacts of continued overdraft and insufficient local water management in the basin. The model, known as the Navy model, was developed without preconceived conclusions and incorporated input from the Technical Advisory Committee, ensuring transparency and public involvement through its creation. The model's depth and precision benefit from access to sensitive information protected for national security purposes, which is not available to other groundwater models. The Navy has retained this model for future operational readiness and potential use in base realignment and closure evaluations. Importantly, the model's purpose was to achieve the most accurate assessment possible with no inherent bias toward a particular outcome. There was no incentive for the model to report a safe yield lower than the basin's actual sustainable capacity. At present, there is no competing groundwater model that has validated to challenge the findings of the Navy model, i.e., the Water District has no model, has not presented a model, and it'll therefore be seen in the future whether they will present a model. So with that, on September 24th, 2024, the Water District published and served a report titled Assessment of Safe Yield for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Basin, prepared by their technical working group. That report states that it used a new groundwater flow model being, a new groundwater flow model being constructed by Ramboll and its analysis of the basin's safe yield. At the December board meeting, concerns were raised regarding this report on the basin's safe yield, which lacks sufficient data to be incorporated into the evaluation. The conclusions presented in the report significantly diverge from the prior studies conducted over the past 50 years, including the Water District's own 2009 Brown and Caldwell report, which estimated an annual recharge rate of 7,940 acre-feet, approximately half of the figure asserted in the district's new report. Moreover, even assuming the safe yield analysis of the Water District's report is based on accurate data, the district has failed to provide any information demonstrating how the basin can be substantially managed under its new higher yield figure, particularly given that this figure is much less than the reported pumping. To aid sustainable management, the Water District would need to present an allocation table showing total pumping levels below the proposed safe yield, something it has refused to do, presumably again due to strategic concerns in the litigation. Considering these considerations, it was suggested during the December meeting that the periodic evaluation be postponed until the Water District could provide a complete groundwater model to substantiate its safe yield claims. The Water District's general manager concluded that delaying the evaluation would be preferable, allowing the district to submit its groundwater model, which we then agreed that we'd give them that time, which was pretty fair. In September 26, 2024, joint status conference statement, the Water District proposed and the court adopted a schedule for the Phase 2 safe yield phase of the trial that would have required the groundwater model to be produced by the GA, or produced to the GA no later than February 18th of 2025. On Friday, February 7th, the Water District revealed for the first time that they did not have a model that was suitable for review by the GA. Attorneys for Meadowbrook represented to the court that the model remained incomplete as of this date. In a filing made to the court, the Water District estimated that the model would not be ready for several more months. It now does appear that this model will be presented in time for the periodic evaluation, if ever. The delay in providing this periodic evaluation illustrates the way the litigation continues to interfere with the implementation of the GSP. Rather than simply present evidence that the Water District claims shows errors in the GSP analysis, the Water District has continued to hide this information to gain tactical advantage in the context of the litigation. The Water District has represented to the court that its intention is to use a judgment in the litigation as a method of rewriting the GSP. Therefore, has no incentive to participate through the SGMA process, even though it sits on the GA board and is charged with doing so. Accordingly, the district has withheld from collaborative forums such as the Technical Advisory Committee and has not contributed to this evaluation. This dual role, participating in regulatory decisions while withholding critical information, complicates the board's ability to manage the basin effectively. The Department of Water Resources has explicitly advised the Water District to engage with SGMA process rather than relying on litigation. However, the district continues to withhold data necessary for transparent decision-making. In summary, the Water District's current approach, withholding critical information while participating in regulatory decisions, poses a governance challenge for the board. The district's actions are at odds with the collaborative, transparent process required under SGMA and hinder the basin's progress toward sustainability. So that's the staff report. I didn't engage in that at the beginning, but that clarifies some of the issues I think that might be concernable. So, and that concludes my report.
So did anyone else have any comments, questions?
No, usually I'm the one who brings up a lot and throws a lot at Scott. I'm the second on the board. I try to keep as involved as I can. I do support that the city is helping the GA to put the information out. It's good to get the information out. I think that, all right, Mike. Yeah, quit. We're all trying to carry on a meeting here. You could show some respect. So the reason I try to stay as involved as I can, because this issue is so deep and there's so much to it, and we do need to go back in time. Like, if you want to understand this, you would have to go all the way back to when the GA was being formed. You would have to walk through painfully all of these conversations. You have to even be in the room. You would have to know people who were taking part in it. So there was policy advisory committees, technical advisory committees, and each of those committees spent a painstaking amount of time helping to get the GA to where it is. Now, I don't think it's perfect, and I cannot wait to see more data. I mean that truthfully. Starting 2020, I was constantly asking Scott, hey, are we drilling more wells? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? I want to see more, and I hope to see some other answer than the one we have right now. But we as council members can only make decisions off the data that we have in front of us. That's all that we can do. We have to just use what's in front of us and move out, and we don't get to sit on the fence. So thank you, Scott. I know it's not an easy position, but you've picked up the mantle and you're holding on to it. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so, all right. So I do have to say that was a little politically biased in reading the verbatim, right?
No, because the issue of what was brought up was those numbers, if you reflect back to that was staff report from the GA, so not a politically biased.
No. Some of the verbiage that was used in there was a little charged, is what I would say. Not offense.
It's factual, pretty much through and through.
So that they haven't been transparent at all, like zero transparency, which is the words that you got to. Like, I'm just trying to say.
Gentlemen, again, I would just advise that we are still involved in litigation.
No.
And
that's fine.
So I would keep, go ahead.
I'm just trying to make it so that, like, it doesn't look like we're biased, right?
Right.
And that's what I was trying to say, is that by reading directly from that and the charged words that were put into that, it looks like we're biased. Sitting up here if we don't question the charged words. So based on what you said, we can't see the GA model because it's shrouded by classification? Because the GA is using the Navy's model that they,
Actually, when the revelation that the district lost its modeler was during a court hearing between the Navy, the district, and the farmers to exchange that information. And that's when this all came out. So no, the Navy is working to provide that discovery to the district, but that has been
Right,
mentioned.
they'll have to work through those parameters that you brought up earlier to be able to make information available, but not interfere with security and
right, so
Technical-
I feel like I'm in a unique position where, like, have we seen the GA model? Like, we as council?
the Navy model.
Yeah, the Navy model, sorry.
Well, you don't really see the model, you do inputs on the model.
Okay.
It's a program that's run. You have inputs and you have outputs.
Okay.
Right. It's not something that, I mean, I guess they can put it online, you can play with it, but,
Not if it's controlled, though, or classified.
well, from what I understand, the Navy will be removing some issues that are classified, but that's still being worked through the court process.
I think likely we should probably quit talking about this very soon.
Yeah.
We are venturing way outside of our legal bounds here.
All right.
I'm not shutting down your comments, Mr. Mayor. I'm saying, like, we need to quit digging into these details. Every single word that we say up here is transcribed by lawyers and will be read back in court. So we need to be careful about that.
All right. All right. So nothing else. We move on to committee reports. The only one that has met since is the Finance Committee from February 11th, 2025. Either Councilman Rajaratnam or Councilman Hayman.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, we did meet, and overall, things look pretty good for the city. The sales tax is down a bit, but that's expected due to the wind down of the base projects. The Measure P and Measure V are looking stable. The property taxes are about average. And I believe that's pretty much all that I have to report on. We did discuss, well, just briefly about the pool bonds, but I believe that City Manager Strand, and talking with him, he will discuss an update on the pool, so I'll leave that out. Anything to add, Solomon? Okay.
Okay, so I want to highlight that the next committee will meet February 27th. That's the Infrastructure Committee with Councilman Blades and myself. After that, we have Economic Development Committee that meets March 3rd, 2025. That's with Councilman Blades and Councilman Rajaratnam. Parks, Rec, and Quality of Life Committee meets March 4th with myself and Councilman Hayman. And City Org meets March 6th with...
Which sadly is not listed.
I know, that's why I'm saying it. So,
Nobody has told me anything about it yet, so that's why.
okay, all right. So, on to other committees, boards, or commissions. Anyone? All right, I have LAFCO. I mean, nothing that we did really affects us right now. We worked on some annexations and agreed to the annual pay increase according to cost of living for the executive officer. That's my report from committee. Any others? Seeing none, we will move on to the city manager report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a little bit of update on the pool. Last Thursday, working with our bond staff and attorneys, we were able to issue bonds for the pool in the amount of about $12.4 million. So we have, those should be completed and secured by the 27th of this month. They will go into a trust account where they'll remain until such time as they're needed. Currently with the bond rates, we should be able to maybe gain just a little bit more interest than what we're paying while they sit in the trust account. We can't obviously make a profit because of arbitrage issues, but we should be able to kind of keep it neutral through that time. The plans, we're at 100% design. We're still getting down to the fine details before we can put it out to bid. We just got the fire department's comments back on the plans. We need to secure a Title 24 commissioner. We haven't quite figured out what that means just yet, but we're working on it. So we're getting a little bit closer to getting these plans out to bid. So that's the update there. We did have one lady that called in earlier about the All Access Park. As you know, council already approved a community development block grant application for an All Access Park. We did that several months ago. There is a state grant out that's a 50% match grant that may apply for that All Access Park. We're currently looking at that. We may hire California Consulting to help us with that, but right now Narissa's doing the assessment on that to see if that's something we want to pursue. Reality, that's probably going to be on hold for at least a year, because our main priorities right now is obviously to get the pool out to bid, under construction, the wastewater facility out to bid, under construction. We have the HCD project that's gone out to bid. That's good. That's a pretty significant project. We have a couple of drainage projects out, so that's probably going to be at least a year out when that CBDG funding comes up. The only thing I would say that would accelerate it is if we got a 50% grant from the state. That would probably put that in a little bit higher gear to get that thing moving, to take advantage of that funding. And with that, that's all I have.
Mr. Strand, you're going to address her concern, I think, right?
I had Travis talk to.
Okay.
Did you have your questions answered? Sandra? Well, I know you had some questions in your public comment, and then I asked the Public Works Director to come talk to you. Is that sufficient? Okay, thank you.
All right, any future agenda items? Skip?
No, thank you, sorry.
Sorry.
I have none.
Councilman Rajaratnam, Councilman Blake.
I do have one thing, sir, and I have talked to Rick about this and the city manager. It will be more in presentations. It won't be a discussion action item. It is so the Lions Club put on a student speaker contest, and I have to say I was impressed. I could not have respected those young adults more, right? They weren't kids, they were young adults. They were all in high school. There was a podium sitting right there. They prepared well. They were tasked with debating AI, friend or foe. And they gave very good talks on it. So I was impressed. And so afterwards, so I was part of judging. After I got done judging it, I asked the Lions Club if they would please have the winner, or at least some of the participants, come and be recognized by the council. They can say some words if they'd like, and I'd like the Lions Club to be recognized for working so hard to get this program out there and doing so much for the youth.
Okay.
So, March 5th.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other future agenda items, council, mayor comments? Start with you, Councilman Corbin. No?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
No passion plea?
None here?
No. All right. So I know we've gone long, but I do want to point out tomorrow there's a scholarship fair for high school students at the Spring Hill Suites from 5 to 8 in one of the conference rooms. For any parents out there that have children that are seeking scholarships, I'm going to go out and try to help or be present. And I know that there's a lot of, switching gears, but there's a lot of concern at least on base, with the way that the executive orders have transpired at a feverish pace. But, you know, I believe that the leaders on base are trying to work through their best way to understand what those executive orders actually mean. We'll find out soon what that means for any probationary workers that are on base, myself included, if they will be let go of their job. So it's a fun time. So if I seemed rattled or frazzled today, there was a reason. So with that, I will adjourn this 2-hour and 36-minute long meeting. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for coming up and having conversations and getting us to think more about how we can help you as the citizens. Have a good night. Go Birds. There we go.
Oh, you.